Welcome into Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolf here, going solo today to break down a huge win for your New York Knicks, 145-101 over the Raptors. Deuce McBride goes crazy. Mitchell Robinson comes back. Precious Achiuwa gets some revenge against his former team. And look, they scored 145 points in regulation. Pretty much everything went right. Next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode after you subscribe, of course. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. And the Knicks won big against Toronto, 145-101. What a way to start this little two-game road tilt, and what a way to keep the momentum going. I mean, you thought that things couldn't get any better after that win against Detroit the other day. Well, you thought wrong. They won by almost 50 points in this game. Absolutely crazy. I mean, just a huge night overall. It's tough to pick out just one thing in particular that you say, oh, this was the thing for this game. Like, there's a lot to be happy about. But if I was going to start painting the picture, let's just talk about some of the things that made this such a fun game. So they get the most points in regulation since the 1980s. I think it was the early 1980s. I'm not gonna lie, they said it on the broadcast. I forgot to write it down, but it's a little, that's something that I don't really mess with stat head well enough to go figure out. So I'm gonna just take their word for it. Since the early 1980s, it's the most points the Knicks have scored in regulation. Second player in 2 games almost touches the previous single game 3-point record, and tied the team record for most in a quarter with 6. That's Deuce McBride, of course, who I'll talk about in just a second. But he came out absolutely on fire, made things really fun to start in this game. This may be the most important big picture thing. The Knicks overtake the 3rd seed from the Cavs, who couldn't put away a similarly bad Charlotte team. So you have the Knicks just absolutely crushing these lottery teams that they're having the fortune of facing this deep in the season. And meanwhile, you have the Cavs kind of blowing it a little bit and not putting away a team like that. So that's great to see. And the Knicks overtake the 3rd spot. Mitchell Robinson comes back and looks really great in this game. I think that he looked fantastic in his limited minutes that he had. And Precious Achiuwa comes back to Toronto, has a revenge game against his former team. We couldn't see the OG Anunoby return/revenge game, whatever, but we did get it from Precious Achiuwa, so you'll take that. And then Dante DiVincenzo gets within 3 3-pointers of breaking Evan Fournier's 3-point record. I think coming up on that a little quicker than we would have maybe expected, because he's just making them at such a torrid pace right now. I mean, he came out there and basically was like, I'm just going to make threes today in this game. Got 5 of them, which of course combined with the 11 last game really sped up the timeline for how quickly he was going to overtake Fournier's record. He was 18 away 2 games ago. Now he finds himself only 3 away at this point. So pretty fantastic stuff there. So it seems like it'll probably happen the next game against the Spurs. I think we can safely chalk that one up. If you want to place a bet on FanDuel or whatever, like might not be a bad bet to say that he's going to break that record in the next game. They'll probably have the over-under set well above what it'll take for him to break the record. But yeah, this game never really seemed in question. The Knicks got out pretty early. They can thank Deuce's hot shooting for that in large part. I think that he really set the tone in that regard. With the 6 3-pointers in the first quarter, which I'll talk more about him in a sec. But that was a huge part of the Knicks getting going. But also everybody kind of just was shooting well, and they scored 80 points in the first half, which was their best half of the season. Yeah, I mean, there was really nothing to complain about in that first half or the game as a whole, obviously, but the first half especially. I mean, the ball was moving crisply. They were finding open shooters. Toronto was pretty decimated. I mean, like RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly didn't get to have any form of revenge, anything either. Um, so they were both sitting out both for personal reasons right now. RJ, I don't know if we've addressed it yet, but condolences to him. Obviously, he's taken some time not on the court right now, mourning the loss of his younger brother, which is just heartbreaking. So my heart goes out to him. And Emmanuel quickly was out for personal reasons as well. So didn't really get to see the former Knicks at all. And Scotty Barnes was also out. So there's a lot. There was not a lot of competition on the other side with the Raptors there, and the Knicks just kind of took care of business. I thought what was cool though, they didn't completely live and die by the three either. I mean, obviously they shot 22 of 44 from three, which like you'll take that all day, but um, I don't think that they took an absurd amount of attempts by modern standards. I think that they had a really balanced attack, and that was sort of what led to everything being as the floor being as open as it was, and everything else. There's a lot of Jalen Brunson and Isaiah Hartenstein pick and roll that really sets tone early too, I think, and that's been a constant lately for the Knicks, and something that you love to see between those two. But I think the lead story in this game, for as much as there was crazy performances across the board from a lot of different guys, I think Mitchell Robinson coming back is the A story here. 8 points, 2 rebounds, 2 blocks in just 12 minutes. And man, he looked awesome. Like, I feel really good about the Knicks at center right now. The 48 minutes of rim protection thing, 100% is true right now. I mean, they just looked so good in that respect for the entire game. Thanks to, I mean, there were some minutes of just precious in this one because it was such a blowout. But when you're able to go from Isaiah Hartenstein to this version of Mitchell Robinson, you're in really, really good shape, I feel like. I thought Mitch looked so spry. He just kind of like set the vibes early, I feel like, being like, "Hey, I'm in good condition. I'm good. Things are going to be good," by coming in and just immediately going after a loose ball. Like really kind of like tracking it. It was going out towards the sideline and he just like sprinted after it, managed to get to it. Um, I it just that's sort of the inspiring sort of stuff that I'm sure the Tibbs immediately looked at and was like, okay, yeah, he's good. Like once he gets off this minutes restriction that he's going to be on probably for a couple games, like it's on. We'll play him 20, 25, whatever minutes, however many we need to spell Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, and you're going to get that amazing rim protection and all the great things that both those guys offer for every minute of every game pretty soon, which is a scary thought. Offensively too, I thought, he hit kind of two standard shots that you see from him pretty often. Got a lob layup that maybe could have been a dunk if things were timed just a little better, but didn't matter. He still put it in, so who cares? From Josh Hart for his first basket of this game, and then gets a dunk later on where he sort of corralled a pass that was semi getting broken up, but gets the pass and corrals it, puts it on the floor, goes up for a two-handed slam. That's pretty standard Mitch fare, but also takes an inbound pass that looked like it was kind of just meant for like, here, take this inbound pass and then wait for someone to come by, give them the ball. We see Mitch or Hartenstein do this a million times, but I guess Mitch was just like, hey, let me show you what I've been working on while I've been out, and takes this inbound pass, catches his defender sleeping, turns with his left hand, dribbles all the way in under the hoop, then kind of clears some space, switches to righty, finishes inside. Pretty cool stuff. And I mean, he looked as explosive as I've ever seen him on that one. I mean, it took me back to like when Gavin and I would talk about like his second year, when he was making those plays where he would put the ball on the floor from around the 3-point line and drive it all the way in and finish with a dunk or whatever. Um, Definitely enough to give some starry eyes there, to me. I mean, it was an eye opener, and I mean, Mitch was looking as quick, as explosive as I think I mean, he looked really good to start this year too, but I don't know. He looks to be in great shape, great shape. Like he's in peak Mitchell Robinson condition, and this is not necessarily what I would have expected right away, and I don't fault him for that. Like, had he come back and needed a little time to work in, but he looks great. He looks totally ready to go. Like, I hope the minutes restriction is honored as long as it needs to be, but then once it's full go time, I don't think there's gonna be any issues. Defensively too, I thought he looked super explosive. He was moving his feet really, really well, sticking with his man, helping. I mean, he had a just an awesome help block. That was sort of that one I think was the most like, all right, Mitch is back moment. Like the Raptors were moving the ball well around the perimeter. They had sort of set like a screen action on the left side, and Mitch was sort of tagging that. And then they kick it over to the right side where there was honestly, I forget half the players that were on the floor for Toronto tonight. It was not a lot of not a lot of talent out there. Um, but kick it over to whoever was over on the right side. They start driving in. Mitch helps over and just annihilates him. Like and covered a lot of ground to get over there and just eat up that shot and save the possession for the Knicks. And I'm pretty sure it ended in a Bojan Bogdanovic three on the other end. So very vintage Mitch all across the board in that. But yeah, I loved seeing Mitch back. I'll get into it a little more when I talk about Precious in a minute, but I also loved the Mitch and Precious combo off the bench. So I mean, if you want to talk about defensive dominance, I think there's a lot going for that pair, based off how things looked in their first time together. Since obviously Precious came in after Mitch had already gotten injured and was out. So we got our first look at those two, and I think things looked really good there. So I'm gonna talk about that. I'm gonna talk about Deuce McBride, who I've somehow not talked about yet. Talk about Bojan Bogdanovic a little bit, Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, and just all the guys that contributed to this crazy blowout win in just a sec. But first, I got to let you know about our good friends over at Nissan. And are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Do you ever wonder what adventure could be right around the next corner? Well, our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. So let me tell you about the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's the perfect car for city drives and great escapes. It has class exclusive Google built in, which is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. But let's maybe check out another car. What about the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder? The Pathfinder has room for up to 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and advanced available 4x4 capability. And with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds towing, when adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. So you can take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. And I got to let you know about our friends over at Fire TV. And I'll tell you what, I love Fire TV. I've been a user for a long time. I use it in my bedroom for all my favorite apps to watch things. I mean, it's kind of eliminated, it was what helped eliminate the need for a cable box for me and a traditional cable subscription. So I totally love Fire TV. It's been very, very good to me. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. And whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. And Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, the NBA, the MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well. So check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit www.amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. All right, and I'm back in to keep talking through this fantastic Knicks win. I love always saying the score when it's a huge win like this, 145-101 over the Toronto Raptors. And yeah, not much of a contest in this one. And a big reason for that Deuce McBride, a team high 29 points, 7 assists, 9 of 14 from 3, 10 of 17 overall. So let's just get into a little bit of the history, or like pseudo history that Deuce got into here. So he ties with DiVincenzo, Jalen Brunson, Carmelo Anthony, Latrell Sprewell, John Starks, J.R. Smith, and Tony Douglas, of all people. I almost forgot about that, for third most threes in a game by a Knick with 9. A couple days ago, that would have been good for second most threes in a game for a Knick, but obviously Dante DiVincenzo set that record the other day. So, good for Deuce, though. I mean, still a pretty rarefied air there in Knicks lore. He also tied John Starks, and I honestly forget who. There was one other person. I don't think it was DiVincenzo, but someone else I forgot. Probably should have written it down, but tied them for most threes in a quarter for the Knicks, with 6 of them in the first quarter. Really set the tone for the Knicks. I mean, Deuce was just lightning. I mean, it was mostly just catch and shoot, and pretty standard fare, but like when they're going down, you just keep shooting them. And that's what he did. And it really helped bury this Raptors team early and give the Knicks the lead that they would just never give up. But yeah, just a fantastic showing for Deuce from the shooting perspective. Obviously, you know what you're getting with him on the defensive end as well. Like, he was sharp there. The Knicks really ate up this Toronto team and just didn't let them do much. But they didn't have a lot of talent on the floor. I honestly, as Kenny Albert was saying most of the names of the players on the Raptors, I was like, who? Like, who's that? Like, Kelly Olynyk, you'll recognize, obviously. Grady Dick, the most famous jersey swapper in the NBA. I remember Ochai Ajbaji because of when the Knicks were looking at him, Gary Trent Jr., obviously. But then you had like Javon Freeman Liberty, who I hadn't really heard of before that. Kobe Simmons, I've heard of, whatever, Garrett Temple, Journeyman, Jordan Nwora. And it was not the most compelling Raptors roster out there. But either way, it's not to take anything away from the fact that, like, if Deuce is shooting that well, he's shooting that well. It wouldn't matter if that's against the Raptors or if it's against, the Celtics. I mean, if you're shooting that well, you're just shooting that well and you're having yourself a fantastic game. Probably found himself a little more open than he maybe would have normally, though. But I really think he's playing his best ball right now. I love that he's come around like this. I think that Deuce is basically guaranteed that he has a rotation spot in this team, when they get fully healthy. I don't think there's any question now at this point that he's going to be out there. He's going to be the guy spelling Jalen Brunson. I think it probably means Alec Burks is more or less done. Burks was injured in this game, but I don't really feel too confident that he's going to be able to earn any minutes over Deuce McBride if this team was fully healthy. Probably also means that Bojan Bogdanovic is going to keep getting kind of shafted there too, which maybe I don't love quite as much, but I guess we'll see. I mean, I think Bogdanovic also fills a different need, but I'll talk about him in a second. But either way, I mean, Deuce, I think, is really rounding into this. Like, the guy I keep coming back to is, I feel like he's just turning into like a Pat Beverley type right now, which, maybe some people would hear that and be like, no, he could be better. I don't mean that as an insult at all. I think Pat Beverley is a really talented NBA player. He's a guy that's been very in demand from a number of teams for a number of years. And pretty much every year is like sought after at the trade deadline and stuff, because he's just a winning type of basketball player. Like, he plays defense, he hits threes, he can handle the ball just good enough, but is probably at his best when he's out there with another higher level ball handler. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And Deuce is starting to fill that role where it's like, yeah, I still don't know if he's going to be able to just be that like guy to break everybody down off the dribble, but if he's making his threes at this high of a clip and shooting like 40% from 3 and providing what he does on defense, he can guard 1 to 2 easily. He could probably shift onto some smaller threes thanks to his wingspan. And you could just kind of throw him on the best ball handling player on the other team and then not overexert him on the other end, and let him just shoot threes and make them in mostly spot up situations. And that's a great situation for Deuce. So I love the player that he's rounding into. This is definitely the one of the higher points so far in his career. Obviously, he just keeps setting like new career highs almost every night. We've seen him score more games over 25 points. I mean, he hadn't scored, I think, over 20 points going into this year. And we're seeing him just do that on a routine basis right now during this run. So I think he's really starting to turn a corner. And I don't know if he's necessarily going to stay as a 20-point per game scorer, but if he settles in as a comfortable, like 8 to 9 point per game scorer, hitting in the amount of threes that he's hitting, and just playing fantastic defense, he's going to have a really long career. Precious Achiuwa had a really monster game as well. I guess you could call it a revenge game against his former team. 19 points, 12 rebounds, 8 of 13 shooting, 2 blocks, 1 steal. And in not that many minutes, it was 27 minutes and 28 seconds. He did all that in a full game line. And I mean, I guess it's a full game's amount of minutes, but not as high as we had seen Precious playing. He certainly wasn't playing like 40 minutes again. And yeah, it just a fun game for Precious. I mean, got the offensive rebounding on lock. 6 of those 12 rebounds were offensive. He was just bullying his former teammates. Also had a huge dunk later in this game. It was kind of garbage time by that point, but who cares? I mean, he just absolutely caught a body, got the ball on the perimeter, drove in with force, and just murdered. I forget who he even dunked on. Again, I'm really bad with who all was on the floor for the Raptors in this game because I was not concerned with any of those players. But yeah, just drove in, absolutely destroyed whoever had the misfortune of trying to contest that dunk. And yeah, got himself a little poster there. I also thought he was really rotating well on D again. And I love the combo of him with Mitch. I don't know, like something about it really popped for me when they were on the floor together. I think it's that if one of them wasn't down the floor yet, the other one always was. And that led to some really good transition defense and just like really good situational defense where maybe the whole thing isn't set yet, but you can count on having one of those two being deep in the post and providing that, rim protection that you need. It was really good. And, I think that I would love to see, I mean, this would be like kind of wonky, but I would kind of love to see a 4-5 pick and roll with those two. Like Precious has shown the ability to handle the ball on the perimeter just a little bit, like just enough where if he gets in the right situation where he's kind of on the move already, he can, start working his way towards the hoop. And, he's shown some decent decision making at times. And I think he could pick out Mitch and throw a little lob there if the situation called for it. So I don't know. I would love to see that. I love how those two played together. And I think you might have a pretty lethal combo there, especially while things are still sort of in flux with Randall. Having a more traditional 4-5 alignment, that's bigger, that can provide more rim protection and all that. I've loved the current starting lineup with Deuce in there and going small, but sometimes you do have to go big. And like I think the Knicks might have their go big lineup right here, and we already know that Precious can also play well with Isaiah Hartenstein, as was evidenced when he was doing that and starting with him. So pretty fantastic. But yeah, Jalen Brunson also had, I guess for him, a pretty garden variety good game. So I'll talk about that in just a sec as well. Uh, Bojan Bogdanovic, 18 points in a very short amount of time. So I'll once again make my case for a little more bogey time. Dante DiVincenzo just casually gets within a few threes of breaking the Knicks single season record. And I'll preview a little bit of the schedule ahead coming up in just a second. But first, this next segment is brought to us by our sponsor, BetterHelp. And sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off our chest, big or small. Certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So today, I want to say how I really feel about something. You might even be thinking about the same thing this week. And honestly, the ad copy here says to talk about something with sports that makes you sad or upset or whatever. Pretty tough to find anything that makes me upset right now. All my sports teams are doing pretty solid. Like, the Knicks are doing awesome. The Mets are doing better than I thought they would in spring training. The Jets are having a decent free agent period, all that stuff. So not too much to complain about here. I will say though, and I say this every time that I do this read, there is a certain stress that comes with doing this podcast every day. I mean, we're doing this very often. I mean, Gavin and I have been trading off a little bit to give each other a little more time off, but on a typical week, we're doing this 5 times a week. We're putting out all this content into the ether. And, every time I record something, I'm always thinking like, is this going to resonate with people? Are people going to enjoy this show? Am I making good enough points? And it's stuff that weighs on me and stuff that keeps me up at night. It's stuff that keeps me up after I record an episode. It's stuff that keeps me up writing scripts late into the night so that then I can record in the morning or whatever, like especially on these solo episodes. And it's certain things like that that give me some anxiety, even though this is something that is ultimately pretty fun to do. But rather than talk about it in an ad read, probably be better if I talked it out in therapy. And therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, or even, the problems of just being a podcast host. I'm pretty privileged to have this opportunity, and I often take that into account. And it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. So visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. All right, and I'm back in to keep talking through this big Knicks win. And I feel like there's almost not that much more to talk about, and yet there's still plenty to talk about. I mean, I guess there always is when your team scores 145 in regulation. But this was just like, I don't know. I feel like if you've watched Knicks games this year, it's this was just like the best version of what could have possibly happened. I mean, obviously, given the caveat that the team isn't fully healthy. So I think, if we want to say what the best possible version of this Knicks team this year would have been, it would include OG Anunoby and Julius Randle and, the gang being all here and, able to do this all together. But given what the Knicks had available to them for this game, I think this was as good of a game as I've seen. I mean, even taking out the caveat of the injuries, this was one of the crisper Knicks games I think I've seen in a while. And as much credit as I gave Deuce McBride in the last segment, Jalen Brunson, ho hum, 26 points, 7 assists, 11 of 19 shooting in 28 minutes and 30 seconds. So a nice light minutes load for Jalen Brunson in this one, and comes up with 26 points, 7 assists, shoots 11 of 19. I thought he did a little bit of everything on the offensive end as usual. Made it look particularly easy in this game, like he does a lot against the not as talented teams. But yeah, just an awesome outing for Brunson. I mean, hit a pull up three somewhat early, hits a three off the catch from Josh Hart in the corner, was getting inside. The floater game was going. But really, the big thing to me that's been standing out lately is his chemistry with Isaiah Hartenstein in pick and roll. I feel like it's setting up so much for this team right now. Like, it's setting up Brunson for easier opportunities. It's setting up Hartenstein to score at a crazy clip. I mean, I didn't even make like a huge note of it in my notes, but he had 15 points in 18 and a half minutes in this game. I mean, he's scoring at a crazy, crazy clip. He shot 5 of 6 as well. Like, I think what we're seeing is that Brunson drawing the attention that Brunson draws is helping out Hartenstein in a huge way, and allowing him to, kind of like get easy opportunities and just get little floaters and dunks and everything else. And I think it's in large part due to the fact that, the Knicks aren't normally under Tibbs a huge volume pick and roll team. Like, they don't really go out there looking, or at least they haven't previously gone out there looking to run like traditional pick and roll. Like, they look to kind of get things going with a pick sometimes, whether it's Hartenstein or whether it's, like Randall or whatever. But usually it just kind of is like a means to an end to space the floor in a certain way for Brunson to then, ISO on a taller defender or whatever, or for Randall to ISO in the mid post or whatever the case. And in this case, they're using it more traditionally. Like, they're just using it to get the action going. Brunson's going all the way in with it. He's finding Hartenstein often, like, with nobody around him because they'll double Brunson. But then once they kind of wise up to that and they start covering Hartenstein more, it gives Brunson more space to get a shot if he wants. It gives Hartenstein an opportunity to be a passer. I just think it's the action that is setting everybody else up right now. And that's why you're seeing like Dante DiVincenzo and Deuce McBride get so many wide open threes, is because this Hartenstein Brunson pick and roll is really setting the tone early and letting the Knicks like operate like a really high functioning offense right now. So yeah, I hope that that's something that they stick with. I hope that, I mean, I love that Mitch is back, and in some ways, I wouldn't mind seeing him start, but based off what we saw in this game, like from Mitch with Precious, whatever, and just how dominant Mitch could be coming off the bench in the role that he's in, I really hope that we stick with Isaiah Hartenstein in that starting lineup, because I do think that he offers just the few little skeleton key things that let this team be great on offense to start games. Um, and it's mostly to do with the passing and the floater game and just all those little things that he does. Especially when he's paired off with Brunson. So we'll see how things progress as we get further in here. But I think Hartenstein starting, Mitch spelling him off the bench, both of them playing like 24 minutes a game. I think the Knicks will be in really good shape for the rest of the year. Bojan Bogdanovic comes in, gets 18 points in 16 minutes and 30 seconds, and like, I'm just saying, like, this is why I keep saying that this guy should probably play a little more. He's a spark plug. I mean, if you give him, also he's like a vet, so like I guess the thought would be like, well, he should always be ready, blah blah blah. But every player needs to find rhythm. If you can just get him some consistent minutes, I think he would find a rhythm, and he'd be a really efficient scorer off the bench for this team, and a ball handler, a little bit of an initiator, like whatever. I really like what he brings. This game really stood out to me as being, just another one where I think that he made a case for having some more playing time. And then Dante DiVincenzo, I noted it earlier, but I'll note it again, just goes out there and was like, I'm going to shoot some threes today. Shoots 5 of 12 overall and 5 of 12 from three, because all he took was threes in this game. He also got to the line once. I'm not going to lie, I forget exactly what the situation there, probably a transition layup or something like that. But so there was one non-3-point attempt because he took a 2-shot shooting foul, but mostly just look to shoot from three in this game and spot up. And honestly, first off, he earned that after the last game with how good he was, like overall, and how active he's been in the last few games overall. Period. Like, yeah, if you just want to be a spot up shooter for a game, that's fine. But also gets within 3 of breaking Evan Fournier's single season record, so we will likely see that fall in the next game. I would put it at like 90%, given how DiVincenzo's shooting right now and the volume he's shooting at. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, you'll take it all day. A 5 of 12 shooting game from him. That's what the Knicks need out of him. And he just keeps delivering it over and over again. So hopefully the Knicks can make easy work of the Spurs too. Continue padding out these their playoff standing here. 3 seed again, very exciting. And hopefully can build on that. And then, after that Spurs game, there is a hard couple games coming up after that with the Thunder, Heat, and Kings on deck after that. So hopefully can once again take care of business against the Spurs, and then look towards the little harder part of the schedule and, start making their case for a home court advantage playoff seed for the playoffs here. So we'll see how it goes. And no matter what, we'll have you covered here on Locked On Knicks. But until next time, thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace out.